Because they stand on a wall and they say nothing's gonna hurt you tonight. Not on my watch.
And so on. In spite of your expertise, many of you will not successfully negotiate this program.
And as the Greek philosopher Heraclitus of Ephesus would have said, change is the only constant. Singapore knows this. You know this.
I want my daughter to have as much opportunity as my son. To which the leader of the opposition says,
It's our turn to stop and to listen.
Blessed, they work so beautifully that we are saved thousands of children, and thousands of children have found their home where they are loved.
I had the opportunity to go with my soldiers. I wanted to go. I came back. I got promoted to major. My mom had a stroke a week later. It was a lot. I wanted to be here to show people that you can make it. You can survive. I don't know how I did, but I did. And you know, I used a cane, but it's nothing. You know, I could still be in a wheelchair. I could have had, you know, brain hemorrhage or nothing. Nothing happened internally. It was all just broken bones.
Große Freude. Es war mir eine Ehre. Herzlichen Dank.
Hi everyone, thank you once again for coming back to us. We are broadcasting to you from the United States of America and Singapore. Yay! And I'm so delighted and honored to have Miss Annette Whittenberger to be with us again for the second episode of her show, The Whittenberger Show. Women's leadership for today. And you know, let's recap last week. She talked about her rise to being a major in the United States of America Army. Hi ma'am, how are you doing today?
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm great. You know, last week it was such a dramatic episode. You know, there was twists and turns, and because we couldn't dive into stories because it was just like 40 minutes we allotted to it, but I hope that we can carry through some of the episodes of your life as learning lessons for women today. You know, and today's topic it's on decision making. Difficult decisions, easy decisions, happy decisions, best decisions, and worst decisions, and the process that takes you through. You know, Annette, you've got such an eventful life, and I don't think I can even start to imagine for many of us civilians staying home, you know, going for shopping, going restaurants where you are there with your people, with your men and women, because you have chosen the life and you have chosen that, and you bite the bullet and you stay with it. And I'm very sure you would have lots of learning points for women like myself, men and women, young men, young women, and even people in their careers, mid-careers, people facing difficult business decisions, difficult career decisions, difficult relationship decisions. I'm very sure that throughout the series, we'll be able to hear from you, Annette. My first question to you is, you know, in your career, you know, you have got such an eventful, you know, rise, but, you know, people from the outside, we will see, oh, we only see that glamour. right? We don't see the hard work that goes behind. It's almost like when we see, like, we see a rock star on the stage, that 5 minute of performance, it may have taken the person 20 years of hard work to arrive at that 5 minutes on stage, to have that spotlight. And I know how difficult it is for women, especially. Tell us, what were the two most difficult decisions that you made in your career, and the story behind it, Annette?
Yes, this is really good question, and it relates so well with everybody. I think one of the hardest decisions for me was, and I'll give you a quick backstory. When I joined the Army back in 1999, we had, for females, we had 6 choices on which military occupational specialty, which we call MOSs, which MOSs we would like to have. And they basically chose it for us. So I chose I think it was 5. I chose my 5, and I chose medical services, military police, military intelligence, engineer, and chemical. So out of those 5, I was given my last choice, but as a backup, I was giving military intelligence. So they gave me both because they do that sometimes based off of need. And so at a certain point in your after you serve, I think it was a year and a half after I served, they said, okay, it's time for you to go off and do your military intelligence. Well, I wanted it so bad, but I was in Germany, and my daughter was just a baby still. I had to turn. I made the hard decision to turn it down, as much as I wanted it so bad. And I don't know if it affected my career. I will never know, because I'll just keep thinking, what if I would have done this? But I had to decide, was I willing to leave Germany to go to the States with a 1-year-old to do this training? Because it was going to be a 9-month-long training. And it was very hard. It was very hard because I wanted it so bad. And I thought, I always was fascinated with military intelligence, and that's a whole other story. But so that was really hard for me. And, I decided to stay in Germany and continue on with my main specialty, which was chemical. So that was the first hard decision. The second one was when I deployed. I knew that with the job, I was going to have to leave. And, I felt almost selfish, because I wanted to deploy, but I was also leaving my kids. So, but I chose it because that's part of the profession. That's part of what you do. But I did feel guilty because I knew I was going to have to leave them.
That was the nature of the business.
It was.
And because these are very hard decisions, and a lot of times, many of us, we face hard decisions, right? It could be hard for you, but it could be easy for someone else for that decision. But the other person would have faced another kind of decisions that was hard.
Right.
Tell us, like, your first episode and your second episode, particularly the struggle you made for the second episode, that the decision was so hard. Tell us that decision process, like, zoom in and tell us that were there sleepless nights? Did you had talks with your husband? Was there any internal talk with yourself? Were you trying to rationalize? And then were you trying to downplay the kind of regret and pain? Tell us that dynamics. It didn't come overnight to, like, toss a coin. I mean, that could have been easy, right? Tossing a coin.
Yes, the first decision when I chose to not take the other specialty was difficult, because a lot of people, there was many of us who had to go through that. For some people it was like a no-brainer, like, yes, it's time, I'm going to go do it. For me, I really felt bad, because I had to think, well, do I leave my daughter with my husband? How will it affect him? If I bring her with me, how am I going to take care of her? How am I going to do the training? There's so many things to think about. And I just chose to stay because I didn't think it was fair to leave it on him. And I didn't think it was fair for my daughter for me to go and take her away from her dad. There's just so many things you got to think about family, and it wasn't just about me anymore. If I did not have my daughter, I probably would have went because would have been good for my career. But there's so many things that you have to think about. With the second decision of taking that position and knowing I had to deploy, my husband and I were both given an opportunity to take command and be in charge of soldiers. We knew he was going to do that. We did not know that I was going to do that. It was a surprise that I was going to get this position. And I talked to him. And we talked about it. And we're like, okay, so this is going to be hard. We're both going to be in command. We're both going to have late nights. We're both going to have to figure this out. And at that time we had both the kids. So those were things that we had to think about, because when it came time to deploy, who was going to take care of our kids? Should we have my mom move out here? Should we have her just stay? Should we have should we send the kids to her in California? There were so many things you have to think about. We were just very lucky to have her move out, and she ended up buying a house, and she stayed here.
It was a big decision. Oh my God, you're talking about moving.
Yes, it was a very dramatic and big decision that she had made. She said, well, I'll just come out here and I'll just buy a house. We never thought that was going to happen. So, so when you deploy, you don't just deploy, you got to think about, what if the kids get sick? How is she going to take them to get medical care? And it's so much. You have to
dynamic.
And then the Army, we had to give her a power of attorney, and she had to have legal guardianship while we were gone in case something happened. And what if something happened to both my husband and I while we were gone? So yes, it's so much that we have to do paperwork wise, and you stress about it, make sure she's okay. Can she get around? Will she be able to drive? Just so much that it's not just easy to just get on a plane and go. You have to.
Could you describe like a typical conversation you have with your husband, either before bedtime or at bedtime or over dinner? How does that tussle go? That tussle is about your internal turmoil, right? Because you want it, but yet it's like you're afraid to really embrace it, right? Tell us that kind of typical conversation you have with your husband.
Before I retired, it was every time we moved, we had to figure out, okay, how long do you think we're going to stay in this one place? Should we buy a house? Should we rent a house? Will we stay there long enough for one of our kids to graduate high school? It is
huge.
Yeah. So in one instance, when we lived in Louisiana, he was not going to be able to stay long enough. In order for us to stay, he went to Korea for a year by himself so that my daughter and I could stay and she could graduate high school. So it's not always so
sacrifice.
Yeah. So he left twice. He had to do that. We had to decide, okay, he says, well, for you to be able to stay here, I'm going to have to leave for a year. And so that, those are big sacrifices. He missed out on her first year of high school, and he missed out on part of her last year of high school. So it's just, it's so many factors that we have to take into consideration on whether it's worth it or not. We could have easily just moved and she would have had to do high school somewhere else, but we decided to stay so that she could graduate from this place. And same with my son, wherever we go, would he be able to stay there long enough? And it's just, it's so much that we always try to talk about how are we going to do this and what's the best way, especially, with retirement. Okay. So if, for example, he's due to retire in the next year and a half. So we have to talk about, well, what do you want to do next? You've been in, he will have been in almost 30 years. Wow. What does he want to do when he grows up? He doesn't know, because he spent all 30 years in the army. That's all he knows. So we have to talk about what's going to happen after. What does he want to do after? Where does he want to go? What is he, what are his plans? And it's very stressful, because for many of our peers or many of our friends, it's easy for them. After I retire, I'm going to go live on a boat, or I'm going to take care of my, but for us, it's not that simple. It's so we have sometimes our conversations are just lighthearted, like we just talk about the day, because talking about the future is so hard sometimes, and because we don't know. This is all we knew. This is all we knew was the army. So we do say that jokingly, is what do we want to be when we grow up, because it's such a different world. So I don't know if that answered your question. It's so many different layers of topics that we talk about, because it's such a life-changing thing to leave something you've known.
Yeah, and because this is your story, the show is about you, about your wife. I take a huge interest as a host and as a producer also, to kind of try to sit in your shoes. And I do see it like your story being told to reflect the lives of many, many military families, military couples like yourselves. The hard decisions a couple needs to make. Either both of them are in the military, or one of them in the military, either the husband or the wife, and they're facing the children's growing up, and then the mother's coming into play, and then getting the help and not getting the help. What should we do? And these are not just buying things off the shelf decisions. These are really, like what you say, you are really deciding on, should we move? Should we buy, or should we rent? And should the children stay long enough to graduate? I mean, I'm really looking at like, if we can, like, if I were you, Annette, are you able to give us this privilege of like zooming into a decision? Like, for example, when your husband decided to go to Korea, because your family, the collective decision between you and him, decided that you should allow your child to kind of stay on, right, to complete the course, the studies. That for a husband and wife to again kind of like leave each other and to be apart again, even though you know that you signed up for it as military. Tell us the kind of emotional dilemma that you face as a woman, that you went through as a woman.
Well, it was hard. But we, with technology, we knew that we would have FaceTime, and that we would talk, as often as possible. But it was sad, because I know he was sad to leave the kids. So, and unfortunately, the kids and I have done it by ourselves before, but it still doesn't get easier. It's especially since they're older and they want to share things with their father, and we just couldn't always do that. Even a simple, basketball game or a school event, he couldn't always be there. So those are things that are sad to miss out on. But we, like I said, with technology, we just sent a lot of pictures and phone calls and stuff like that. So that was very helpful. It's still difficult, but still very helpful. And I think that's what really made it a little bit easier, was being able to still connect him that way. But yes, I mean, it was stressful for me to have to worry about how I was going to take care of she was a teenager. Yeah, they were both teenagers. So
I mean, there's so many aspects of it. Let's zoom into you as a woman. Do you face such decisions, even though you say the second time it was still difficult? Are you made up 50% heart, 50% head, or X percentage heart, X percentage head when you make a decision? And tell us that.
That's such a great question. My husband always tells me that I always lead with my heart. And then when I get emotional, he says, step back a minute. Are you leading with your heart or with your head? And I have to think about that because I'm a very emotional person. I'm very passionate, and I do often more times than not make decisions based with my heart. So yeah, I not the right way, but but I do. It's a lot with my heart.
Yeah, and you know, you being a mother, and of course these decisions as your children grow up, there's not the whole dimension to the decision making, because you need to listen to their preference. You need to listen to what they want, you know. So you know, being a mother, and then you have a husband, and you have your child, do you have like an open conversation with them, like around the table, or like, you know, watching just before the prime time news, or is there a particular occasion that you think, okay, this is best time for the family discussion?
Yes, we have within the past 5-10 years, we have tried to speak to them and involve them in the decision-making process. We would tell them this is what's going to happen, but it's going to be okay. But we need you to do this, this, and this. So we do involve them. We do tell them a lot, and include them in what is the next step in our life, so that they know. Because I think it's important now in this generation, this society, to do that. So we've done that. We've done that for a while, to include them and ask them their opinion, and have that hard conversation so that they know.
And you know, being a major yourself, and rising through these ranks, and making tough decisions at work, in the military. I mean, you are also, you said that yourself, you are majorly an emotional person. You know, your heart's decision makes a big part of your final decision. Tell us, are you able to tell us, to reveal, were there vulnerable times? Were there times whereby you felt that you needed to really cry it out, either alone or with your husband or with a girlfriend? Were there such moments that you needed and that you did?
Yes, many times I have done that. I either would call him and just let it all out, and he would calm me down, or I would just go and have a good cry, because sometimes that's what we need to do. You know, it's so hard to try to be tough all the time and to wear all these hats, to be professional, to be a mom, and just to be a female. It's so hard. Because we're expected to be seen differently, and I just, you know, sometimes I just can't handle it. And I have to let it out. And sometimes it's just not even crying. Sometimes it's just sitting in front of the TV. Because you just need to not think about life. Sometimes you just need to focus on something else. And so that's how I've had to do it. And you know, and it's okay. It really is, because if you hold that in, you're just going to explode. Yeah. So I've done it.
Yeah. And you talked about, you know, your two tough decisions. Finally, you made the decision that your mom moved to where you were, and that both of you got your deployment. You know, that decision process, it's impactful. I mean, it impacts your life, your career. And like what you say, there's so many layers. It's such a dynamic process. And I'm really thinking that if this is your show, Annette, and I think the best person to act it out will be Meryl Streep, because, you know, you need to play that intricate decision making, like, you know, should I or should I not? And then it's like the middle of the night, you stand at the window and to think about it, and then looking at the phone and not knowing what to type. And, you know, but I think they are real, even though you said it in the last 15 minutes. I mean, these huge decisions were the formative direction of your lives, Annette.
It is. It's been like that for as long as I can remember, but it's made us a little bit tougher, because we just had to do it. It's all, yeah, there was no other choice but just to do it. And God really led us where we needed to go. I don't think he ever steers us wrong. So we just had to trust the process, and trusting the process when you are so used to trying to have control is very hard, very hard.
Yeah. They were the tough decisions about work, turning points in your career. Could you share with us one best decision in your career that you have made?
I besides
Maybe
my kid,
several.
besides my kids, I really don't regret joining the Army. I really don't. And, I wasn't very sure back then. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I kind of went with the flow, which is not, I don't know why I did that, but that was one of the best decisions, I think, because it taught me a lot, even with all the hardships and the struggles that I have now, that came out of it. I think that, there was always a plan. God had a plan, and I'm glad that I stuck with it.
Yeah,
That was a good decision.
yeah. Was there, like, you are someone who who has a faith. Do you believe something like, that the tug of the gut, that calling, and how does that feel? I suppose you have felt it before.
Yes, there was certain instances where I was with my soldiers where I knew that this was the place I was supposed to be in, because I just love being around soldiers. But even more so now, there's this there's something in my gut that tells me that the work that I do now is needed, and so that's what really gets me. So it's just it's a weird feeling, but it's a great feeling, because I do believe. And it's, you just feel it, you just know, right? You just know.
Yeah. A couple of questions, like, if you had these experience, how would you be able to translate that to your children, letting them know, like, if you do make a tough decision, you do need to make a tough decision, difficult decision, what are the top 3 things they need to think about? What are the takeaways that, if you reflect in those difficult decisions that you have made, and those turning points in your life, what are the top 3 things that anyone should learn from you?
Oh, yes. When we talk to the kids about their life decisions, why are you doing it? What do you expect to come out of it? And what was the other one? As long as it's in your heart, what you feel, why you're doing it. Don't just do it because everyone else is doing it. You be the leader and not the follower. And is it your passion? Do you really want to do this? And what do you think is going to happen afterwards? What do you want to do with this degree or with that decision that you made? How do you think it's going to impact others? Because sometimes we cannot just think of ourselves. We have to think of how will it affect other people as well, the decision that you make. So that's what we try to think about now, and that's what I try to think about when I make my own decisions is, is this for just for me, or is it for others? And what impact will I make, or do I want to make?
Yeah. And you and your husband, as a military couple, there are times that you're apart. There are times that you come together. Even for anyone, it would have been hard, right? Times of being apart and times of being together could be hard too for a lot of people. Tell us, were there struggles within the relationship? And now that you look back, or even currently, like, are there points of learning that you look at and say, hey, I think this this could have been better, or these are some of the lessons. These were some of the things that we should learn from each other or within the relationship. Are there any points in time that you think that it was a learning episode?
Oh, that's hard. Well, I will always be honest, but so we've been married 23 years, and every year is different. There were struggles in the beginning because we were young and we were both trying to figure out our own life. And so learning how to communicate, we did not know how to do that really because we were so stressed out. So it took us many, many years to learn how to do that. More so me, because I think I just felt so much pressure and I was just trying to survive. And so I can't pinpoint exactly what years, but there were several. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy because I'm emotional and he's not. He's very tough, and I'm a softie. And I, like we said, I lead with my heart. So there's still, even to this day, sometimes we're better now, but it's always been challenging. It really has, because I had to learn how to do some things. And so and because he's so tough. So
How hard is it for a woman who is tough to live with another man who is even tougher? Tell us.
Oh my gosh. It is. There's, oh my gosh. And I have to remind him sometimes that it's okay to be, to have some fun, and you're not always a soldier.
Wow.
But I think that one of the best things out there, and not many people want to do, and that I'll be honest and say that I should have done, was counseling. When you're both in that leadership role for so long, I think that you need to have some family therapy to talk about why or how to get through that wall of being so tough all the time. How can you communicate better, because we're 24/7 soldiers that it's like you don't know how to step back and not be one. So it's hard, and
it's
even
like to peel away that uniform, right?
I mean, I'm just being honest, that I am happy that it's lasted 23 years, but we're still young, you just communication is the key. You have to learn to not try to be the tart ass all the time, and you have to let your guard down and just talk. You need to learn how to talk, and that's hard for people.
Communication and probably family therapy.
Yes.
I would like to paint you a scenario. We are now living in a globalized world. Hopefully with COVID-19, hopefully if it dies down, we will go back to the globalized world. And you were a globalized citizen, right? I mean, for your deployment, you were everywhere. And likewise, a lot of people who are working, husbands will travel to this Europe, France, and then the wife will probably stay back in this part in Asia or in America, or have to stay or deployed by the company to go to maybe South Africa. Now, if they are like you, like what you say, it's tough decisions, and this is such a scenario that is not talked about in the open, because people just expected it, because my husband is going to go to Europe for work for 6 months, and I need to go, or I need to stay back home for 6 months to wait for him, or I need to be deployed by the company to go to South Africa. The world is going this way, Annette. What are your advice for a couple who are facing a decision like yourself, like, okay, it's that crossroad with the family. No one wants to give in. No one wants to give in to say that, okay, I'm going to stay back home to take care of the kids. So what is your advice for that couple?
Well, I think like I just stated is communication, I think that's one of the things that's lost, when it comes to when it comes to situations like that. It's almost like you just go, the husband either just says, okay, I gotta go,
I gotta go.
and they
My
don't
ticket
sit
is
down.
ready.
Yeah, and they don't sit down and talk about, okay, what's going to happen, how are you going to be if I leave, how can we take care, how can I help you take care of the kids while I'm gone, just all those
How
little
can I help you? Yes.
yes, and not just expect, okay, you're going to take care of them. No,
Yeah.
you can't. Yes, I know that, but I am going to need help. So, for him or her to ask, how can I still help you
I
while
think
I'm
that's a
away?
great question.
It's
Great
not, it's,
question.
yeah, I think it's expected. Okay, I'm leaving, but what's the aftermath of the situation while I'm gone? So you just need to communicate it. Don't just expect it to be, everything's going to be taken care of, because although it's going to be taken care of, you don't know how difficult that is, being the only one taking care of everything while that other person is gone. It's very hard.
Yeah.
Emotionally, it's difficult because you're trying to be strong for so long.
Yeah. And yeah, and like what you said, I think that question is so crucial to a lot of us. Like, what else can I do when I'm away, when I'm gone? What else can I do? How can I help when I'm away? I'm not physically here. I think that is a great question, and that's a starting point. I think a lot of couples should really start the conversation from there. Great advice, Annette. A couple more questions, but I've got about 30 minutes of you already. In your relationship and in your career, so much difficult decisions. How does anyone, like a young career woman, or now you're doing your business, how are these questions applicable to the boardroom?
I think with any profession, like with my own daughter, why you need to think about if that is your passion, and who are you doing it for? Because
who are you doing it with for?
Yeah, are you doing it for you, or are you doing it for someone else? And never follow someone. I'll just say it. My daughter's dating a really great boy, but I also try to tell her, never follow someone. Do this for you, and you'll end up being where you're meant to be. But go after your career and don't ever change it just to make someone else happy. You have to do it for yourself. It's because you're young. So for young girls, who's starting a career, I try to tell them, do it for you, and is this your passion? And don't settle. A lot of us settle for many different reasons. And so you have to do what sets your soul on fire, really, wherever, corporate world or military, whatever the case is. A lot of us do things for money. And although that's great, are you happy? Are you really happy doing it for just the money? And that's why I love teachers so much, because obviously they don't do it for the money. They're not getting paid at all, not what they deserve, but they're doing it because they love teaching the children. And that's so commendable and not praised enough. And so we need to think about stuff like that. And remember that this is for us. This is what we want to do, and this is why I do what I do. I certainly do not make a lot of money at all, but I love helping people, and that's why I do what I do, and I won't stop that. And but that's my passion, and that's why I continue it.
Yeah, wow. That's a great speech right there, Annette. I'm just so speechless. But you leading your life, you showing the light to a lot of people, especially young people who needs very good role models that there aren't a lot around. Definitely not Kim Kardashian, you know. So, you know, definitely we need a lot of good role models for women, for young people. And I think what you said touched a lot of points. There's so much to chew on. What you say, going for your passion. Are you doing for someone else? Are you doing for yourself? You got to do something that sets your heart on fire. Code for the day. You know, and yeah, and not everything should be driven by money. I mean, what you've done, what your husband is doing, still serving the military, you are serving a huge purpose. Otherwise, you would not have stayed in, because the tough decisions that you have made was not worth the money. I mean, that says it all, right? I mean, we can't just live for money. And you know, with the need for living for a larger purpose for ourselves, like yourself, you've shown an example. I think this is what the millennials need right now, Annette. They need to find, number one, like what you say, which I'm going to wrap up, the calling. Something that they know that they're doing right, they can feel it in their guts, like what you have said, and although sticking with it, right? Not giving up, and also doing something for yourself and choosing something that sets your heart on fire, and having communication and possibly family therapy, couple therapy if needed. Wonderful lesson from you. Women's leadership for today, Annette. Thank you so much, ma'am. Is there any final words that you'd like to wrap up and summarize in the next 10 seconds?
Well, you know, just really go after what sets your soul on fire, and everything else will fall into place.
And everything else will fall into place. Wow, that's the quote for the day. That's the takeaway, ladies and gentlemen. And that's Miss Annette Whittenberger, retired Major of the United States of America Army, who has led 8 missions of peacekeeping to keep the world safe. We can't live without someone like her. I mean, she's the epitome of a women leader of today. You know, thank you so much for your service, ma'am, and thank you for what you have done, and thank you for the sacrifices. I think that stories should start. You should really reveal this kind of struggles, because people like us, we know, number one, you're not made of metal, right? You're made of blood and the soul, right? And I think that more light should be shone on all these military veterans, the struggles that they go through or they have gone through, and they're together with the rest of the family. It's not just one person. You're talking about the whole family and the extended family, like your mom, who needed to move. So, you know, thank you for your story. Wonderful and touching story. And thanks to your mom. Please say hi to her. Tell her we love her. And, you know, Annette, I can't wait to hear more stories from you. If you're willing to divulge more, to share with us, and to zoom into different episodes. And definitely next episode, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it for the first episode and the second episode. You know what's going to come up. Great, wonderful, real stories, and that's real talk. Annette, thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and all the best, all the blessings and protection from myself and from Singapore to you and to your family and to the people of America.
Thank you.
Because they stand on a wall and they say nothing's going to hurt you tonight. Not on my watch.
And so on. In spite of your expertise, many of you will not successfully negotiate this program.
And as the Greek philosopher Heraclitus of Ephesus would have said, change is the only constant. Singapore knows this. You know this.
I want my daughter to have as much opportunity as my son. To which the leader of the opposition
It
says,
is our turn to stop and to listen.
Blessed, they work so beautifully that we are saved thousands of children, and thousands of children have found a home where they are
I
loved.
had the opportunity to go with my soldiers, I wanted to go. I came back, I got promoted to major. My mom had a stroke a week later. It was a lot. I wanted to be here to show people that you can make it, you can survive. I don't know how I did, but I did. And you know, I use a cane, but it's nothing. You know, I could still be in a wheelchair. I could have had, you know, brain hemorrhage or nothing. Nothing happened internally. It was all just broken bones.
Große Freude. Es war mir eine Ehre. Herzlichen Dank.